There's great joy in feedback. Yeah, I said it. I put it out there. There's joy in feedback. Your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. If we're going to reference the love of lifelong learning, then you guys, we've got to embrace feedback. We've got to celebrate what you want to see more of. 75% of all teachers said they received no specific feedback about how to improve their practice. Only 43% actually use the feedback to improve instruction. So that leaves us with 25% actually got it to improve instruction. Of that 25%, only 43% are using it. So my question is, why are only 25% of our teachers actually receiving feedback? What is your first response when you think about feedback or difficult conversations? Is your initial thought cringeworthy or hesitancy? If it is, my goal today is getting you to embrace a different mindset. As educators, we have in our mind that our job is to teach, right? Every day we want to show up, we want to teach. But sometimes we've got to stop and consider our job is really to create opportunities for learning. The shift in this paradigm is essential as you consider how you create a school culture that is focused on feedback and living in the stretch. It's about voraciously seeking opportunities that lead to growth. As leaders, especially educational leaders, I know over my career, we all the time use the phrase lifelong learning, the love of lifelong learning, how we embrace learning. So here's my question for everybody. If it's all about the love of learning, if it's about the love of lifelong learning, then how come we talk about the stretch as being something difficult? We talk about feedback as being cringeworthy. And that is difficult for us because if we're going to reference the love of lifelong learning, then you guys, we've got to embrace feedback because feedback is learning. Learning is stretching. You know what? When I think about feedback, there's one word that comes to mind for me, and it's going to tell you a lot about my mindset, but for me, there's a great joy in feedback. Yeah, I said it. I put it out there. There's joy in feedback. But I'll tell you, in my life, people who have had the courage, people who have been willing to come alongside me and give me real, authentic feedback, the ones that have taken the time to ask me questions and learn where I was in that process, they've enriched my life in so many ways. And that's why I say it's joy in feedback. You guys, I'm daily in schools, and one of the reasons why I'm invited to visit these schools and to collaborate with amazing educators everywhere is I work with teams on feedback, having those conversations that are authentic and trying to create an environment where it stays positive and it embraces the stretch. I believe we should consider feedback as a gift. There's two reasons why I think we should consider it a gift. Number one, somebody was kind enough to give us the stretch in our life. They gave us an opportunity to learn and grow. Number two, feedback's a gift because it does create that opportunity. It allows you the chance to evaluate, reflect on, and make a decision if you're going to change your behavior. I read a quote that said, your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. You know, we need to think about that. Sometimes we do get really comfortable, right? I can tell you when I'm comfortable on my couch, covered with my blanket, reading a good book, I'm not going to move. Nothing's really going to grow there at that time. But listen, you guys, we've got to get out of our comfort zone sometimes. And it's not only the comfort zone about us. We have to let people know we're open to the feedback. It's one thing to say, oh, I value your opinion. I value the things that you share with me. I value your feedback. It's another to really be responsive and listen. And it goes both ways. So just like we do on each of our podcasts, we go a 3, 2, 1. We're going to have 3 points. We're going to discuss 2 questions, and then we're going to have 1 quote. Obviously, I can't leave a podcast without the stretch, so we'll always have that action item. I want to share with you, though, first a little bit of data. Sorry, but I can't help myself. I think there's a study that's out there that's really important we need to consider when it comes to feedback. 2016, there was a study of teachers. I want you to hear the data that came out of this. 75% of all teachers said they received no specific feedback about how to improve their practice. That makes me want to cry. All right. 75% said they did not receive specific feedback on how they improved their practice. Here's the other scary data that came out of that. Only 43% actually use the feedback to improve instruction. Think about those numbers. You got 75% that don't receive feedback at all. So that leaves us with 25% actually got it to improve instruction. 25%. Of that 25%, only 43% are using it. So less than half. So when we think of the whole, we're getting what? 15% or so? So my question is, why are only 25% of our teachers actually receiving feedback? You've got to self-reflect on this. We all do. I had to ask myself the same question because I can tell you in a schoolhouse every day, there's a parent waiting to visit it with us. There's maybe a different administrator waiting to visit with us from district level. Maybe there is, pressures on all different levels, and we have discipline issues going on. We have events, we have activities. We can certainly prioritize a million things in the day. But the most important thing for our students when they come to our schools is learning. And to get to that place of learning, we got to create an environment where feedback and living in the stretch is the norm. So it is investing the time in doing that, okay? Let's think also about that 25% of the teachers that are actually getting the feedback. Who are they? I started thinking about that as I was considering my administrative time. You know what? I always was comfortable with talking to my brand new teachers because they were open. They were excited about learning. They couldn't wait. They were like trying to survive. And so the conversations were easy, right? Because I was ready to feed into them and encourage them and give them all these nuggets of wisdom I had to bestow on them. I didn't look forward to those conversations I knew were going to be difficult. I didn't look forward to the conversation with an individual who'd been teaching for years and thought they had it figured out. But you know what? In fairness to them, I had to think and take ownership of that. Maybe they were not looking forward to my feedback because I didn't enrich them. I didn't stretch them. I did more of the same. They were in that group of 75%. I didn't really intentionally focus on a reason why and a reason for the feedback. We can absolutely improve on this and we can make a difference immediately, but it's necessary that we stop and we invest the time to do this. So let's get to our 3 points. All right. I'm going to tell you in point number 1, it's all about joy. I'm going to go back to joy. And I know we have too many acronyms in education, but I'm going to give you one more. So hang with me. One more. It's joy. Joy in feedback. We're going to go through it. J means just in time. All of our feedback needs to be in a timely manner. We don't need to wait. We don't need to put it off. Stop, drop in, give them the feedback immediately. J, just in time. The O in joy represents ownership. The goal is to transfer the ownership to your staff, to your teachers, or the students in case of the teacher, because we both know how desperately students need feedback, okay? When we empower people around us to own their learning, the feedback conversations exponentially go up. Think about it. If you ask them, tell me how you want to be stretched today. Tell them the focus that you're working on and then say, where do you want your learning to start? O is the ownership. The Y in joy is yardstick. We have to invest in each other. The yardstick is the yes to the conversation. The yardstick represents the growth. The yardstick happens when we allow learning to take place. So point number 1 is joy. It is the joy in feedback. All right. Point number 2 is the O enjoy, the ownership of the learning. And point number 3 is the why enjoy. It's the yardstick. It's the actions. Actions equal results. It matters. We have to prioritize feedback so it really has an impact. I also want to share with you the 5 core elements that I think are really important in creating this feedback culture. First of all, our focus. You guys, we got to be specific. Make sure everyone around you knows the expectation. Number 2, a common language. What is the common language that everybody is using on your campus? Make sure that everybody has that clear, it's defined, and they know. Number 3 element of feedback is celebrate. You've got to celebrate what you want to see more of. And I think it's critical in celebrations, assume best intent. I had a colleague one time that used that phrase with me. Lisa, you've got to assume best intent. And you know what? I'm so glad now that it was one of those moments in my life that I was truly listening to the conversation and the feedback, because it has stayed with me. It resonated with me. Assume best intent. Every time you walk in that classroom, assume that teacher's doing their very best. Every time you walk into the classroom, assume that teacher has done lots of preparation to deliver the best lesson that they can. Assume best intent. Number 4, edify. Edify and growth. You know, I looked up in Webster's dictionary the definition of edify. I wanted to really saturate those words in my mind. Edify means to build, to establish, to enlighten, and inform. Think about those descriptors. Build, establish, enlighten, and inform. To me, edify is the core of growth for feedback, because when we're able to edify, build a culture where people are wanting and voraciously searching for growth opportunities, when we establish that foundation that we know this is where the learning begins, and then enlighten. To me, enlighten's all about the new. It's the opportunities to seek out peers that can stretch us and create more opportunities for learning. They enlighten us with a different perspective, the diversity of thought. And then the last one, inform. It is about information, but we're gathering information from so many more sources. Think about that as a leader. It's not just about us as the leader. The more we look at everybody on the team being able to inform us and to stretch our learning, growth exponentially increases. You guys, using that same language, we know what our targets are, and success is easily celebrated, and then growth will absolutely occur. And number 5, it's timely. I've already mentioned that, but you got to keep thinking about it. Our feedback has to be on time. It has to be manageable. It has to be something that is real and authentic to those teachers in the moment. So a recap of our 3 points today. It's all about joy in the feedback. Remember, I told you from the very beginning, I want you to think differently. We want it to be about joy. We don't want it about stress. We want it to be about joy, not cringeworthy. We want it to be about joy because we don't want to be not looking forward to that conversation. You guys, if we don't think about feedback conversations from a filter of joy, then that's the reason why we only have 25% receiving those conversations. Because if you don't look forward to it, you're not going to do it. I'm not going to wake up in the morning and say, hey, what's my least favorite thing to do, and then go do it. Nope, not going to happen, right? So we've got to change our perspective. Joy in feedback, just in time, own it, take the ownership of it, and have a yardstick of it. Is it producing results? You have to ask yourself, for every conversation I have with someone, is there a direct correlation to a change in habit, a change in behavior, a change in thought? That's where we've got to start. 2 questions for the day for you. Do you have a common language? Does it exist for feedback? Do they know what your focus is, and is there clarity of message? And then, do we provide focused growth opportunities for feedback? Is there an opportunity in your PLCs, in your team meetings, your faculty meetings, where you stop and you're just like, let's give each other some feedback today? Are you creating those moments? My quote for today is, if we're going to say as educators, we want students to love learning, to have lifelong learning and embrace it, then we as educators have to embrace the idea there's joy in feedback, because feedback equates to learning. Each podcast, we always have action items, right? Because we want to model living in the stretch. What are we going to do with the learning from today? Because learning should equate to some sort of response. Today, our action item is, let's take some time to really make feedback conversations our priority. Look at your calendars. How are you having intentional one-on-one conversations with others? How are you influencing your PLCs, your team meetings by having rich feedback conversations? Where are you creating a place in your faculty meetings to stretch the conversations? You guys, we want these conversations to be the norm. So really take a look at your calendar. Your goal is intentionality for feedback conversations. You guys, my mission always is to create a bandwidth so leaders have the opportunity and space to lead and learn continuously. I'm so excited today because you took the time to join this podcast. I know your time is valuable. I'm collaborating weekly with educators all over, and I love that we can use this podcast to learn from each other and discuss relevant and current leadership topics. I'm super excited to share with you and a bit nervous about it, I got to tell you. But this week's podcast is a chapter in our upcoming book. It will be coming out soon. So if you're interested in our book, please join our email list by clicking on the link in the show notes, and we will keep you updated on the release. If this content or any of the content we deliver in our podcast is helpful to you, please share it with others. Share it with other educational leaders that you think may benefit. Share it on social media so they can be a part of our community. Thanks for joining today, the Lisa Spain Learning and Leadership Podcast. Keep growing in your leadership. I believe in you. Every single day, you're a part of greatness.